And we are up. This is the Our Town Podcast, episode number 5. Numero 5.
All right.
And sitting across from me is a special guest. I know that we might use that term a little too liberally at times, special. But this is a special guest. This is somebody I've known for going on 25, 26 years. But there was a period of time in our lives where, kind of after college and different things like that, you go your separate ways. And Thad Forester is the host of the Patriot to the Core podcast, and he's also an author of a book. And principally, we're going to talk a lot about his brother, Mark Forester, who was killed in action in the military. And Thad. I was telling Thad before we came on, I've been doing so much research on their family. I just want to keep calling him Mark. But Thad will give us his perspective on things, particularly as it has been 12 years since, or almost 12 years, right? Mm-hmm. Since Mark passed away. But Thad Forester, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Troy. How about you?
I'm doing well. And similar to some of the guests I've had on episode 4 and Tony Mack and episode 1 with Ricky Fernandez, they're used to being on the other side of the mic, right? Where I'm at now as a host. And I imagine maybe it's a little strange for you to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and with cameras too. I'm not used to speaking in a microphone with cameras on me too much.
You're up to episode 88, I believe, on your podcast.
Yep.
And I've been working myself backwards. I went 88, 87, 86. I think it was 85. And then you had sent me a text with some of the episodes that I should also check out. And I got to tell you, I wasn't exactly sure. And just kind of listening to some of those episodes and kind of what angle would I want to take and hopefully not cover things that have been covered in the podcast you host. But episode 11, where I was listening to today quite a bit, where you're talking with your brother Joseph about Mark. And at that time, it was 6 years since he had passed. This is 2016 episode you did back then. That got me thinking on a whole different level. But we're going to get to a lot of things, but let's start with Haleyville, Alabama. That's where you're from. Mm-hmm. Born and raised?
Born and raised.
And tell me how many siblings you have.
I've got 3 brothers and a sister, and I'm next to the youngest.
Next to the youngest.
And Mark is the youngest.
Okay. So go through the names in the order, top to bottom.
Terry is, she's 11 years older than me, so she was born in 66. And then David, he was 4 years later. Then Joseph was 3 years later. Then I was 4 years after Joseph. And then Mark was 4 years after me. So my parents had children born in 66 to 81.
Okay. And your name's Thad. Mm-hmm. A little different than Mark and Joseph. Come some biblical names. Terry's the sister. David's the other one.
Right.
So where did Thad come from? Where they kind of broke the mold, if you will?
Yeah, it's a name that I didn't like when I was younger. It was weird. People can't understand it to this day. No one can understand it on the phone. But my dad was watching an Alabama football game. This was in 76. I think it had to be 76. And a player named Thad Flanagan was playing. My dad liked him. He's like, that's a sharp, clean-cut young man. And he was one of the captains for Alabama. And anyway, Dad's like, let's name him Thad. So that's where it came from. It's not Thaddeus. It's just Thad. And I've lived with it ever since. And it's fine with me now, but no one can understand it.
Really?
Yeah, so in college, I had a job. I was basically a telemarketer, and I just was Brad, and it was so simple. It was great.
Just go by Brad.
Yeah.
Now, is that a popular name in the South?
I don't think so. I've met very, very few. Now, my wife tells me it sounds very Southern, and maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know many.
Well, one reason I like you, and having moved to Huntsville recently, I know you're not from Huntsville. You're from Haleyville, which is south and a little bit west of here.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Just a little south. And from here, it's about an hour and a half.
70, 60 miles?
Probably. You got to go through the forest, so it takes longer than normally would.
Well, when you talk, right? Because you're from Alabama. I like that. This is a very diverse city in some respects, right? Where people have come from all over the country to work.
Yeah.
And as soon as it only takes a few words to find out if someone is from Alabama or maybe from the South, right? With a little bit more of a draw, which I love.
Yeah, somebody at church said, "Oh, I like your accent," and I said, "I'm in Alabama. What's the deal?"
That's funny. So tell me a little bit about Haleyville.
Obviously, small town. Your listeners.
How small?
So about 4,500, 5,000 people. The high school is a size 4A, so in Alabama they go 1A to 7A now. Haleyville's a 4A, and it's been one for probably that size for a long time.
So somewhere between like 1,000 and 1,500 enrollment?
Probably less.
Less than that?
I don't know. Basically, I think it's a little bigger now, but my class had 95 graduates. Every class, at least when I was there, had around 100 students.
Okay.
So, I mean, I remember when we got Hardee's, Jack's, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, and I don't remember KF's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, but that was probably there most of my life, in Pizza Hut. But yeah, then we lived out in the country, and great place to grow up.
What was your favorite amongst those chains you just listed?
Oh, man. I loved McDonald's, a Big Mac. It just... And if you remember, it's just early 90s, they had the 2 for $2. Mm-hmm. And I remember we didn't have a McDonald's then in Haleyville, but when we traveled, I was hitting up a 2 Big Macs. That was a great deal.
I remember it being $2.99 on the value meal for quite a while. So with tax in Virginia, it was $3.12. And I had a buddy. Every day he was hoping to find $3.12. He would beg for $3 because he knew that's what he would get after school, right? Was to get a Big Mac meal, and it was $3.12 forever until it finally just kind of changed. I know what I was going to mention. You had mentioned how your dad liked the name Thad. My youngest, his name is Dylan, but his middle name is Major. And there were 2 quarterbacks I remember in college growing up: Major Harris from West Virginia and Major Applewhite from Texas. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought, if I'm ever going to have a quarterback, even though I'm not very tall and my wife's not tall, but maybe if we name him Major, he'll end up being like 6'3" and be a quarterback. And of course that didn't happen, but we named him Dylan Major by. And it turns out though that Major is a family name. Goes way on my wife's side. It goes back probably 6 or 7 generations to someone. So we felt like, whew, okay, it's not just football.
Yeah, he hasn't let you down.
Right. So in Haleyville, then so we're going to talk a lot about your brother Mark in this, but give me an idea of the types of, how close knit were you as a family, as brothers? And if so, the various activities that you did, kind of growing up.
The way it worked out is Mark and I, the 2 youngest, we were 4 years apart. He and I kind of ended up spending more time together. Once Joseph and David turned 15 or 16, they started working. And
and you and Mark are about 5 years apart?
We're
4
years apart.
Okay.
We're all basically 4 years apart, pretty much. So Terry was like a second mom to us, and I know I say Terry, however you pronounce it, but Terri. I guess it's my Haleyville accent, but she was like a second mom, and then when Mark was born, she really was like a mom to him, and I think he slept with her a lot. He would go to my mom to nurse, and then she kept him quite a bit. So, but we grew. Yeah, we fought. We played outside all the time, and
fish.
We fished at my grandmother's. We'd go down there and fish a lot. And my brothers hunted. I didn't hunt much. I didn't like getting up that early. Mm-hmm. Mark and I would, but we all played outside, and that was just what we did. I mean, obviously we didn't have a lot of TV channels. I mean, we grew up at the same time, so it was we didn't watch a lot of TV.
You're born in 76?
77.
Oh, you're 77, right? Mm-hmm. I'm 75, so I'm a little older than you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And plus, it was the country, so the channels we did get it just wasn't many at all.
Right. Okay, so then, and a lot of the reason I want to talk about Haleyville is later we'll talk about the Mark Forester, Foundation and some scholarships and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't really want to paint that picture. But who are some of the more influential people outside of your parents growing up there that you feel like really taught you something? And maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but now that you've had a chance to look back.
Well, maybe I think about, besides my grandmother, big time, my dad's mom lived in Haleyville. My mom's dad, or parents, lived in Hamilton, which is about 30 minutes away. But I think about the people that I called right when I was notified of Mark's death, because I got the notification too at my home. And so obviously we knew, my parents knew because they'd been notified. Dad called us. We were in the process of being told. So then I was wondering, okay, well, I live an hour and a half away. I got to call somebody and make sure mom and dad's closest friends know. So I called our neighbors, the Kilpatricks.
Mm-hmm.
So they had been there most of my life, and so I always thought highly of them. And Randy would fix he could fix anything. And then I called the Bradburys, close family friends. I said, hey, do y'all know? And they had already knew, and they were headed over to mom and dad, so that was great. And so I don't know. There's several family friends I think that were close. A lot of them, or the Bradburys, were through church, and so I knew them that way also.
So, were you hired by some of these families to come over and do yard work or barbecues, parties?
That, yeah, definitely. I don't know if they ever hired me though. They have, but yeah, we swim, go over. I mean, shoot, the Bradburys had like 80 acres, huge pond, great woods, a pool,
Right.
And went over there a lot.
And same thing for Mark. Would he have, if he were here and I asked him the same thing about, you pronounce it Haleyville or Haleyville? How should I pronounce it?
If you're from there, it's Haleyville.
Haleyville.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's spelled Haleyville.
Right.
Yeah.
So Haleyville.
Yeah.
Who are some people who were influential in his life when he was a young man, teenager, high school?
I would say we have a cousin, Mike, that Mark hunted with. We have an uncle, William, my dad's brother, who died a year after Mark was killed.
Really?
A freak accident kind of thing. And some of our cousins and uncles that Mark hunted with were influential, and and then some of his, I don't know, maybe a friend's dad or two.
Okay. So he went to Air. Were you Air Force? Were you in the Air Force? Okay,
No.
but the Air Force. You had a brother. Was Joseph in the Air Force?
Right.
Okay, so talk me through military service outside of just Mark. Those in your family that had served in the military, in what branch?
Well, yeah, Dad was in the National Guard, and then Joseph joined the Air Force to go through medical school. So he joined in, I think, 99, or he entered medical school in 99, I believe. And let's see, so he's still in the Air Force. He's going to retire next summer. He's going to move up this way, probably close to this way. He's already got a job in a private practice as an allergist.
Okay.
And so Mark relied on Joseph a lot. When Mark had decided he's going in the military, he wants to get in the action. He wants to take part in fighting terrorism. And so he talked to Joseph a lot. And Joseph at that time was living in San Antonio. He was at Lackland Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. So Mark went to see him. We went out there several times to see him. And he went out there and said, hey, here's some PJs, the pararescuemen. And you don't hear a lot about them, and you really don't hear about combat controllers. And
Right.
Joseph had heard about combat controllers, like, hey, go to the Air Force, Mark, because you probably are going to be safe in the Air Force. That was kind of Joseph's justification, but he took him down there to see him, and then that's how Mark was introduced, and then he started when he decided he was going to be a combat controller.
And I think 9/11 had a lot to do with that for him, right?
Right.
He was serving a mission for the church, and 9/11 happens while he's out, and it had an effect on him.
Right.
I know it had an effect on me. I was, I was newly married and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career and school, and then 9/11 happened, and I felt a need to do something a little bit more. So I put myself in as working for a company. I was luckily able to get a top secret clearance, and I wanted to go in the intel community. So, it wasn't military, but it was kind of my way of what can I do in some way, in some form or fashion, to be a little bit more patriotic.
Mm-hmm.
In even my, choice of employment. So, did you remember having any conversations with Mark kind of post 9/11 about that and his convictions?
Not
changing?
much. He knew he was going to go to college first. And so there was he hadn't really gone to college before his mission. So he had several years of college. So we didn't talk about it a lot. I mean, that was in the plans, and he had a lot of physical changing to do to get ready to go into the special operations. And so we didn't talk about it a whole lot until closer towards the end of his college years.
Okay.
Because he did live with me. He moved in with me. I had a house in Tuscaloosa, so we were definitely close that way as adults.
Yeah, let's not skip too far forward. So first of all, Roll Tide.
Yeah, Roll Tide.
So you guys were enrolled at Alabama, and you were a little bit further ahead of him. You had a place there, and you were also working.
Yep.
Or okay,
Yep. I basically stayed in Tuscaloosa and worked for many years.
and then he came in as a student and lived with you.
He did.
How were those times?
They were great. They were great. I had an apartment. We lived there, and then I got a house, and he moved in with me there. And no, it was awesome. I mean, and have somebody else to help with yard work and housework too.
Yeah.
But no, we had a great time. And then he had some of his own friends. I had on some of mine, but then we also had the same friends too. And they stayed up later than I did for sure. I couldn't stay up that late playing Halo and the things that they did, but
Right.
sometimes we did.
So if you're, I recall when the military would come to, the various branches would come to a high school and try to, do some recruitment. And to this day, I'm not sure if I would know what branch to join. I'm still as indecisive now at 46 as I was when I was 17. Like, I don't know. Ultimately, I'm sure I would make a decision. But, for him, I don't know a lot about the CCTs, and if you could, talk about that. But when you think of Special Forces, most people think of the SEALs, they think of Delta Force, Army Rangers. But talk about, if you could, and maybe some in our audience can be a little bit kind of ignorant like I am, to what a CCT is and kind of what that track is and how you kind of enter the military and take on that specialty.
Yeah, most people are not going to know. In fact, if someone tells me they know what a combat controller is, I instantly don't believe them.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, and I may be wrong sometimes, but of course, I'm not the best person to tell what they are since I haven't been in. But it basically, Mark. First of all, he wanted to be in the action, and so he chose to enlist instead, even though he had a college degree, because he felt like that would give him the greatest opportunity for deployments, to get his hands dirty and to actually be able to fire on the enemy.
Okay.
Combat controllers, basically, they are a special operations component of the Air Force. So they attach to other teams like SF, like Green Berets. They would attach to maybe some Rangers or maybe some SEALs. I may have some of this wrong, but they don't deploy as their own team. They attach to other teams.
Okay.
And they're the ones so they're on the ground. They're going to talk to the aircraft in the air, and they have to understand all these different platforms in the air and what their capabilities are. So you're fighting on the ground, and you're also controlling the assets above and where those are, what the targets are on the ground for them.
What do you think attracted him to that? Do you have any sort of insight into?
I think it was just a way to be directly involved in the fight. And plus, it's tough. I don't know how you could do it I haven't been in combat, but I think about when things get hairy, how can you protect yourself and still be able to have your wits about you to drop bombs on the enemy and not on people or on buildings that you don't want to hit. I mean, that just is so complex. And Mark was really he had almost a photographic memory. I mean, he was made for it, and he could handle all of that stress.
So he in a minute we'll talk about when he passed on September 29th, 2010. When did he first go into action?
He was deployed he left here in late April or early May of 2010.
Okay. Wow.
His first deployment.
Gotcha. And it's what, I'm actually going to switch over to the website real quick.
Okay.
Let's do that. I just want to, and I believe there's some videos in here. Oh, different mouse here. Maybe it's the Honor of the Heroes. Is that the movie that was made?
No.
You want to help me navigate? I'm looking for the one where there's some footage where he's wearing his helmet cam. And presumably, maybe it's during exercises and stuff, but you get a little bit of kind of his personality, a little bit of glimpse in that. And I'm not sure where I stumbled upon that earlier.
Yeah, it's not Honor of the Heroes. Maybe you're talking about his helmet cam footage when they're actually in a fight.
Maybe.
And this is May or June of 2010, and they're taking fire from an area and they can't find the enemy. And Mark is trying to get clearance so he can drop a bomb, but he doesn't know where to drop it. So he's got his special forces team there, and And he's also got the Afghans, the Afghan National Army there, and he's trying to get them to fight, and they're hiding behind the wall. And so he's just saying, "Hey, no, look at them and shoot them. None of this." And stand up and shoot them. And he's trying to fire him up. And in the middle of it, he sits down and says, "Whoa, I'm thirsty." But no, he was, I think he was just in his element.
Yeah.
And they're getting shot at, but they don't really know where they're getting shot at from. So you can't. I mean, what do you do?
Right. So what were the circumstances which led to him being killed? How much do you know about that?
Well, I've researched a lot. I mean, since that happened, I've wanted to find out everything I could. So I still don't know everything, of course, but we have a Silver Star citation, which is a pretty good document to say, okay, this is what happened. I still have questions about it, but it was a large scale operation. This was day 2, and the first day Mark was the mounted element, so he was riding most of the day, and his counterpart George Earhart, who was another, he was a TAC P, but he was in the same role Mark was as a JTAC, and so the next day, day 2, and they stayed up late that night, by the way, talking. They knew they needed to get some rest because it was going to be a long day the next day. So the next day they switched roles. George was mounted, Mark was dismounted, so he was walking. And they getting in a little village, Janglak village, and I think it was like an ambush.
Really?
Yeah. So, but his SF medic, Calvin Harrison, was shot first. We know that. We know that Mark knew there was at least one person out there, and I don't know if he knew where. We know that he was trying to get help from above. He had 2 Apaches above him, and he had at least 1 F-18. And he was saying, I need you now," but he couldn't direct them where to drop any ordnance. And maybe if he could have, I'm not sure if they could have done anything, because the enemy was so close to. There were people there too, and our guys as well. So yeah, in his attempt to get to Calvin, Mark was shot. And he was basically, imagine him running forward, firing his weapon, and it goes through his forearm and into his chest. It grazed his chest plate, his armor, and into his heart.
So Calvin was down, and he was on his way, or didn't know the extent of his injuries, or if he had been.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he knew that Calvin was dead. I really just don't know that for sure at the time.
And that's where he later receives the Purple Heart, right, as well in that effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So earlier you mentioned, I think, simultaneous contact. That I thought I heard in that episode that he had filled out some papers in the event that he was killed. Can you talk us through what that means, and then in relation to also when you found out?
Yeah.
What was going on when you found out, and then what does that simultaneous contact entail?
Well, the military has a very specific method in which they notify families. And, I believe the way it works is they're not going to tell anyone until the primary next of kin that the service member has specified gets notified first. And it's tough in this day and age because of the news and social media. So Mark's was, 2 Americans were killed at that time, so it wasn't big news yet. But yeah, Mark had, and I knew that he had done this. He requested that my parents and I get simultaneous notifications. And so I lived in Tuscaloosa. My parents, there's actually really cool, the whole background to it is pretty cool that somebody could read about, but, I've talked about in different podcasts with different guests that were involved, but they fly into Haleyville. The airport is not far from my parents' house. They hop in a little old city car, and I don't even know where they got another vehicle from, but they got some cars and they scope out the house, my parents' house. But it was during the day. My dad was at work. Mom was in bed, not feeling good. And they assigned 2 guys that were Mark's teammates. They assigned them to they were going to be they were the ones in street clothes, and they were scoping out the house. The other ones hopped back in the air in an airplane and flew to Tuscaloosa. And so there were two of them to be at my house, and then there was more than that at my parents'. And they just kept driving by the house, and I think one of my neighbors stopped them because he noticed. He's like, "Hey, y'all need some help with something?" Because occasionally, we have some odd people come down the road, and they just try to protect it. It's a dead end street, and but yeah, they notified my parents, and they were on the phone in constant communication. They'd found my house, and my wife and I were there, just having a regular evening. It's about 6, I think about 6 o'clock in the evening, and within a few minutes of them telling my parents, they told me. They knocked on my door and told me.
So these were members of his team that had not deployed?
Correct. Okay. Some of them were like some of his instructors or teammates. Some of them didn't know him closely, but they were on his team. And the guys that came to me knew him. A few of the people at Mom and Dad's knew him closely, but they all knew him. Yeah. So that was pretty cool, Troy, because most of the time the military, they're not going to do that. Especially you think about the big military, big Air Force, big Army. They're going to usually send someone probably from the closest base. And Mark's community is so small, they send their own. And I've taken that to Washington as a member of the Air Force, of the Survivor Advocacy Council, and said, hey, you need to send people that know them to the families, not just a random person from the closest base.
So you were in Tuscaloosa, and they knock on your door, your home. Mm-hmm. Did you know before they even said a word?
It's hard to say. I mean, I open the door. I see 2 guys in Air Force dress blues. They have somber looks. And they say, hey, we know Mark. Can we come in? Something like that. And I guess I knew. It was just hard to process it. I sat down. It was clearly a really heavy moment the moment I answered the door, because then they've told me I answered the door with a smile, and my smile quickly left. So, but the first question I asked him, Troy, was, well, what happened? But the second question was, did you know Mark?
Yeah.
And it was important to me. I figure it's important to a lot of other people. If you have somebody delivering news like that
yeah,
it's a little comforting probably to know that, yeah, I knew him. I put him through this training, or something like that.
So then they fly him to Dover. Mm-hmm. And did you all went to Dover to greet the plane?
Yeah, my the Air Force would pay for, I think, 3 people to go to Dover to fly there, and we have some great friends. So Bo and Sylvia Knight. And many others behind the scenes, they realize, look, we don't want them to fly commercially. I mean, a commercial flight out of Haleyville will have to drive to Birmingham or Huntsville.
Right.
And there's no direct flight to Dover or whatever the closest airport is there. Maybe there is to, I guess, D.C. or something, or Baltimore. But they got us a private plane, some great people in Haleyville, and Mom and Dad and me and Bo Knight and his wife, and then some of the guys that were signed to stay with us flew up. Met my brother Joseph. He flew in from San Antonio, and yeah, so we were there for the dignified transfer.
And where was were there 2 funerals? Was there a funeral there of some sort, a military thing, or was it just family when you were able to bring him back to Haleyville?
Yeah, so that's just that ceremony of the angel flight or the dignified transfer. They did get him off the plane,
okay,
and then that was really it. We talked to some people there, and then the next ceremony was the dignified arrival when he flew into Haleyville.
Okay.
And then we had a funeral. Yeah, the funeral a few days later.
How well attended was that?
Well, it was held at the gym at the high school.
Okay.
I don't know. I estimated 1,400 people. I mean,
wow.
it was full. It was the only. I mean, it was really the only place in town that we could have it to hold the people.
I've been, on one hand, it seems like we live in a really small world, but then there's other times where it feels like this is a huge world, where I don't know how many other fallen heroes may have come from Haleyville, but it doesn't seem to happen that often, right? But yet thousands have died, right?
Yeah,
thousands have died around the country, and I can't recall in communities I live where that has happened, where that makes it didn't feel like, well, this world is gigantic, because certainly there's been thousands of funerals and services, right? And or something that we'll probably spend the rest of this time talking about is then the memoriam around that individual, whether that's a foundation or a podcast or whatever it is, a charity race, right? Where I don't know if there's been other fallen heroes in Haleyville, but you probably think about that. You think of Mark Forester, who's just one of many, right? But and again, how cool then that and how important, I shouldn't say cool, how important that the Air Force would take the time to then send people that he knew to really care for that one.
That's right.
And extend that appreciation and offer that family the proper condolences.
Yeah.
Under the circumstance. So I'm sure you were in shock, maybe in disbelief for a while. Do you remember, was there different levels of reaction in the family to kind of his death, and how long did it kind of take to get back to normal, if you will?
Yeah. I think we probably all had denial. I mean, I can remember standing at the casket, when we were able to first see his body in Haleyville, and it just didn't look like him. First of all, of course, it didn't, and his hair was all jacked up. It wasn't his hair. He had much better hair than that, and so fortunately, one of his teammates, Ish, gave us a beret, put the red beret on, take care of the hair. We knew Mom could not see that hair.
He had grown it out?
No, they had cut it.
Oh,
it was long,
okay.
yeah, for a while he was deployed, but yeah, they had cut it, and it just didn't look good. And it was parted on the wrong side too, I believe. I think, or we told him which side, but anyway, it didn't look good. So there was a part of me standing there saying, maybe this really isn't him, and maybe this is just
sure,
maybe he's doing something else. But I mean, I think we also knew that, hey, this is it. Yeah. So I think, I don't know. I mean, if you go down whatever direction you want to go, Troy, but yeah, I mean, it was a killer, almost a killer for my parents for sure.
Sure. Got to bury a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I just can't imagine.
He was 29.
He was 29.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, yeah. So I don't know if age matters, when you lose a child.
Sure.
I don't know that, but he was an adult. He wasn't married. He was their youngest, so he really was their baby. And I just remember the sounds of weeping and wailing all night long that first night, because we got to Haleyville and I stayed there. My wife and I stayed there, and I remember commotion. It was just Mom and Dad, me and Roz at the house that night once everybody left, and so but there was a lot of commotion, and Mom was on his bed for quite a while that night.
And how are they doing now, 12 years later, your parents?
It's really changed them a lot. And, I think a lot of people may say, it's been almost 12 years, you need to move on. And look, they function and they do everything they need to do.
Sure.
But I never saw my dad cry until Mark's death. Now my dad could cry. I could make him cry right now by telling a story. When my dad watches this, if he does, he probably has tears in his eyes. There's with all the memorials and ceremonies, there's been a ton since his death. I mean, the first year there was something all the time, and there's still always something, and we appreciate that. But my mom really can't handle it, and so she finally years ago just stopped going. It just drains her so much. She emotionally cannot handle it. So they're definitely, it's changed them. They know the whole look. They understand he's fine.
Yeah,
and they're going to see him again. They know that.
Right.
But that still doesn't take away the pain. And but they've also had a second round of grandchildren after his death. It kind of worked out good that way, where Joseph, they had 2 cabooses. They thought they were long done, and they had 2 more. Then we had 3, and my brother David probably had another one or 2, and so now my mom has 2 great grandchildren. So that's brought life into her for sure.
That's the circle of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting. My father passed away, and the same weekend my cousin's getting married, and we had already had some family committed to attend that. And then I'm like, well, I got to go, attend the funeral. But it's just and it's tough, right? You're kind of texting congrats to someone's getting married, and then you're getting condolences from the same people, but it's certainly, anytime there's those children born, right, it can soften some of those feelings.
Oh yeah.
So let's transition now into what comes first. We have the Mark Forester Foundation. Whose idea was that, and how long was that from the time he, died to the time that became a thing?
That's a good question. I'm not sure whose idea it was. I mean, it probably was Mom or Dad's.
Mm-hmm.
It could have come from a close family friend, friends that helped with the race. But it came about quickly. I know that, and it could have been from another friend that actually, a good friend of mine and Mark's actually set the foundation up.
Okay.
He set it up.
501c3.
Yep, exactly. And he filed it, sent us the paperwork. Boom, it's done. And he may have even set up the domain. No, he did. He did markaforester.com, like right off the bat. And this is Michael Andrew. His real name is Mike Schiffler, friend from college. And he is a big reason why people knew about Mark so quickly, because he had his own website. He posted about it when he found out as quickly as he could. He had a lot of followers because he's a photographer, and he started putting all kinds of info out there. So people contacted us because of him. That's how they kind of knew how to get with us at first.
So if you want to look at the screen, this is what people are seeing now. I love, first of all, did he do all your artwork? Like your logos and stuff? They're really good. Those are really good. The Mark Forester Foundation logo, the one where it's an actual picture of your brother in action with the Alabama hat outside.
Yeah.
That's been digitized. And then we'll get to your book that you wrote, My Brother in Arms, but those are really good.
Yeah, Mom actually had the foundation logo was in Mom's head there, and she was able to get it to somebody who designed it, put it on paper.
Yeah, actually, and let me switch back over to the internet real quick. So I want to point out a couple other things that I think are just high class. But each of those medals hanging are separate PNG. You know, you can actually download each one of those.
Yeah, you can click on it and see what they are, what those medals are called.
I mean, I think a reason I bring this up is a first class remembrance of your brother. Even in things as simple as a website, the care and the quality of the artwork, the logo, the medals, this is really good stuff, which I think, it helps intensify, the importance that he was as a brother, as a son, right, as a grandson to your grandparents, and a citizen of Haleyville, right, which was as a community affected by this.
Oh yeah.
So what, the one thing I didn't ask, what is the primary? Okay, we need, the families. Someone has this idea. We need to create a foundation. What is kind of that mission statement behind it? What is the primary, and maybe even secondary objective of this foundation?
Yeah, the main purpose is to provide college scholarships to Haleyville High School graduates or graduate. That's the main purpose. And then in addition to that, if we have the funds, we like to just help other organizations that are supportive of our military and or law enforcement.
Is there a large percentage of those growing up in Haleyville that go into the armed services?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a large percentage, but we definitely have them, and we've had our share of some guys that really were involved in combat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't tell you a percentage. And even when I graduated, I can think off the top of my head right now 2 guys that have been in the military and stayed in the military a long time.
Okay.
But I'm sure there were more than that.
So was there also then, your family saw an opportunity, or were not enough kids wanting to go to college, and whether financial reasons or otherwise, and this was kind of a way to have your own way to influence that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it was more of, look, we're proud of our son. He's done something that, don't we want everybody to discover their mission and accomplish it, whatever that mission is?
Yeah.
Mark discovered his, and this is what he felt strongly about. He felt like God wanted him to fight terrorists, and he magnified his calling here on earth. And so I think that's really it. Is just we wanted people to understand that here's a young man that walked these halls. He followed what he felt he was supposed to do, and he gave his life for freedom, for all of our freedom. And man, I mean, free speech, liberty, the right to bear arms. I mean, these are just some great. These are basic rights that we can't lose, and he fought for those, not just for us, but for other people too. Yeah.
So the foundation, then, it's fair to say, was probably up and running within a year of him passing.
Oh yeah. We gave
pretty quick.
we gave a scholarship in May of 2011.
Okay.
I think might have been 2.
Single recipient, or was there a couple?
It was 1 or 2. I can't remember. We've had anywhere from 1 to maybe to 5 at times.
Then what was the next step? Or as part of that, so there was raising some money. Mm-hmm. You're getting some donations. The word is getting out about this. What was kind of the first event? Do you recall?
Well, the first event would have been the race, the Price of Freedom race, and the 30-mile memorial birthday walk that happened in May of 2011. So, a family friend of ours, the Tinkers, our close family friends, they wanted to do a race, and I wanted to do a walk, a memorial walk, just walk a long way. I wanted to walk, and I wanted the miles to represent how old Mark would be at that year, and do it every year. So increase the mileage every year.
And kind of like a ruck, like something he may have done, like long walks.
Yeah, it's something different, and it's hard. People think, oh, I can walk, but it's actually not easy.
Right.
And Haleyville is hilly.
Yep.
And so May of 2011 was our first event.
And then you've had one every year.
Mm-hmm.
I guess somewhat now disrupted by COVID and having to do some virtual races, but have you been, talk to me a little bit about the growth kind of year upon year. I can see just in your subscribership on your podcast, which we'll talk about, where there's certainly the word is out, but have you been just amazed at kind of how the foundation has grown, or the interest in Mark's story has grown, over these years through the foundation?
Well, I've been amazed at the support from so many people, and for so long. Now, we don't have huge turnouts for the race or the walk. Now, the walk, and see, the race and walk are the same time. The walk takes a lot longer, but I'm never there for the race, so I just hear about it.
Right.
The walk has had anywhere from 35 to 75 people.
Okay.
It fluctuates each year. Lots of military people come in from out of state. Several. Fly in. We've had them flying from Arizona, from Washington, all kinds of places. But I don't know. It's been virtual the last few years. And by the way, I said the mileage would represent his age for the walk. That is. Well, we finally capped it. We just went, hey, JAG 28 walk.
Right.
This is too much of a strain on our resources because we have police escorts and we have a lot of volunteers. We can't keep doing this because it's going to get dark. And what are we going to ask people to do? So we decided to just do a JAG 28. So that's where the walk is now.
Thank you for bringing that up. So let me show this is the JAG 28. Yeah. That was his call sign.
Right.
Any idea on the origin of that? Because obviously when I think JAG, I think of a JAG lawyer. Mine goes wherever. But JAG 28, what is the...
JAG is short for Jaguar.
Okay.
And so combat controllers, and I don't know if it was combat controllers or if it was just I guess it was anybody who was a JTAC.
Okay.
Joint Terminal Attack Controller or Air Controller.
Sure.
Anyway, one of those two. I don't claim to know it exactly, but that was the role that Mark was in. So they were Jaguar something. Mark's was 28. And the only reason why we even broadcast that now is just because it was retired, because he was killed. And Coming Home, Lifetime had a series called Coming Home that started in 2011, where they filmed these happy reunions, surprise happy reunions of people coming home to their families. And they did an episode on Mark. And I didn't know they were going to do this, but they had to have everything approved, through the Air Force. And they said he's known as JAG 28. And so then we're like, maybe we need to just kind of use that. And so we've kind of used JAG 28 quite a bit too, and kind of put it on the website, so it's kind of like trademarked.
Yeah, that's awesome. And 28 was just a random assignment,
as far as I know. I know there's JAG 05. I've known some other ones, that were killed that have different numbers. Yes, I don't know. I guess it's random. It could, but it also, I'm sure someone else had it before Mark.
Yeah. So now let's talk about Patriot to the Core. Did that come before you wrote the book? My Brother in Arms?
After,
yeah. Well, let's talk about the book then first. Mm-hmm. So how soon after he passed, right? They have the foundation. I would imagine this was probably festering in your mind sometime. Do I write a book, and how do I go about this? Can you walk me through that? And then ultimately, when did you complete it?
Yeah, it was a matter of days. I remember us sitting in the living room, and probably some of the Tinkers were there too. We talked about they wanted to do a race, and I was like, I'm going to write a book. And I knew I was going to. And look, I know that I'm not a gifted writer, and I didn't care. It's not like I was writing it to pay to support my family. I wanted Mark wasn't married, had no children, and I knew that it wouldn't take long for people to not in our family to not know who he was, because think of how many of Mark's nieces and nephews now have been born that didn't know him, or that were very little that didn't know him. So I've had 3 children, none of them knew him.
Yeah.
And so we needed to his life needed to be captured. And so that's why. I mean, it was one of those things where I felt strongly about it. I believed in it, and I didn't care how long it took. I didn't care if it was. I mean, I wanted it to be good. I wanted it to be a New York Times bestseller, but it didn't matter. I wanted something accurate out there for the world to have. And when people ask questions, I can say, "Here's the book." Right. So when a movie is made, boom, here's the Bible for the movie right here.
And so when was it completed?
Yeah, it was completed in 2013. So it took 3 years.
Okay.
It took 3 full years to get it done.
Did it take a while to find a publisher?
No, I got fortunate in that. I'm trying to think how I you put me on the spot here. I can't remember, but Melanie Davis with Triumph Press was a huge help, and she was the publisher, and she's the one that put me in touch with Matthew Glencoe, who helped me organize things. His name is on the cover of the book too. He helped me greatly with the book, put things together.
So here's what's interesting. I was thinking about this today when I was listening to episode 11 with your brother, as I mentioned, and that was 6 years after his death, and you had a special episode. And to that point, I was trying to do whatever research I could. And like you, right? You have a podcast. You know, you want to have all the time in the world to prepare for it. I would love to have listened to all 88 of your episodes, right, and be fully prepared. And I did what I could. And I'm so glad that I started listening to that, because it again brought in another dimension. And so, you know, I'm sure you're like me, having grown up before the digital era where you had just photo albums. Mm-hmm. And so at my father's funeral, I have a stepsister who brings out these photo albums that I'd never seen. I'm like, oh, wow, actually there I am as a toddler, because I didn't have a lot of memory living with my dad. I had no memory of living with him. So like I saw some pictures. And I thought how easy it is just to be able to grab a book, grab your favorite photo album and search for pictures. Where now it's much more difficult. You know, what laptop's that on? Is it in the cloud? Is it in this computer? That computer is lost forever. And I was really thinking, as you were going back and forth with your brother, that this is kind of an element of family history, where it's not just a matter of who you're related to in your family tree, but how thankful your family will be to you one day when they have all this footage of your podcast, right? Where you've talked to numerous guests about Mark. So for those nieces and nephews that will never get to know him, mm-hmm. they will learn about Mark through hours and hours of footage that you recorded. And here I am now thinking differently, where his story and just listening to you and your brother go back and forth, it makes me think about my relationship with my family, you know, as a listener, my relationship to my kids, and trying to be a better dad, just kind of listening to those experiences, right? And then thinking about those I've lost in my family and mm-hmm. that effect that it had or didn't have, or the positive. I can be more positive by listening to how the Foresters reacted to it, or what have you, right? Or the things they've done with the foundation. So I was really glad that it's kind of at the last moment that I got to listen to that episode, and it just helped me think of things even on a different level. And I don't know if that's just because I'm a father of 4 and I'm 46 now, and if it had the same effect if this happened, or I was aware of this when I was 21. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how much you've even thought about that, just as far as, not that it's your responsibility, but certainly you've taken on where you're going to play this critical role in your family to preserve that history through the book, through podcasts, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. Glad you listened to it. That was kind of a special episode, and Foresters are not known to be the most emotional people,
right?
And I think it was good, because that was tough on Joseph, and especially ever since Mark's death, I've really been interested in how people found out and what all happened behind the scenes, and And plus, mom and dad don't want to talk about it a whole lot. And I ask them, and dad doesn't say a whole lot about it. And so I thought that was important to get his perspective. And also, I mean, how valuable all these pictures and videos are, just like you saw with your family.
Yeah.
And as random as they may be, I mean, I ask people, any story I can hear right now about Mark, I want to hear it. And I'm not asking for all the good hero stories. Just tell me something. He was a real person, and he wasn't some immortal figure. He was a human being that made mistakes. Just tell me something. I want to hear it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for us because we make mistakes, and even though we put these people on these high pedestals when they die, that we can't just look at all the good stuff.
Yeah. So if you don't mind me telling you this a little bit more about my dad. So he was in a motorcycle accident in 1982. And again, I never lived with him. And so then he just passed away. So 40 years he lived in a very, very different physical state, but when you're a head injury, you're going to lose a period of your life of memory. And in his case, and my mom had a similar accident, they're going to lose kind of 15 to 16 years of your life, just delete, gone. And so he has obviously no memory of that event. And my mom lost her memory. So, my whole life, here I am, that happened when I was 6. So for 40 of my years of my life, I have been wanting to know more about what happened. And you hear things, I've heard stuff from my uncle or my cousins, and sometimes the stories corroborate and sometimes there's some differences. But just over this past weekend, I met a man who was 10 years old and was on the scene and saw my dad injured, right? And
As a 10-year-old.
As a 10-year-old. Now he is, however old he is now. But to me, it's like this is another piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And I need that. And I met another man who his father knew my dad, and went to the hospital and was one of the first people to see him in the hospital. That's been, this is information I'm just now getting.
Yeah.
40 years later. But the guy's account, the 10-year-old, his account was that my dad went off alone on this ride, where every other person has said he went off with 4 people and it was like in the mountains. It was a dirt bike ride, but he was 10. So how much of his side of it is, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but I do crave. I crave any information I can get.
Oh yeah.
Right. I don't know if it's closure, just curiosity.
Man, yeah, because you can't ask your mom.
No.
You couldn't ask either one of them.
No.
When they were alive. Wow.
And other people weren't there. No one from the family was there to know really what happened. So I went years. Like sometimes I went years when certain facts about my family I was just wrong, but I didn't know. And then you're kind of corrected later, like, oh my goodness. But so plug a few things for me. So in this coming May, is there going to be a walk or a run?
There is. They're both officially virtual again. So we're working to change that next year to get back to in 2023 to get back.
So I can register through the website to participate.
Yep.
Okay. And I was listening to one of your episodes with Kyle, who said he didn't have time to walk it, so he just ran it.
Yeah.
And I think he timed it where maybe he just ran past you guys on the way.
Yeah,
he was worried about dogs getting him.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we planned that out, but yeah, he ran it, and he's a super athlete, and that's a good episode.
So he is it pretty? So you're taking it's still the same route every time, but you have to add a little bit. Well, you capped it at 35, right? 35 miles.
28.
28. Okay.
We went back. We got up to 36, then went back to 28. Just left at 28.
Okay. And it's the same route kind of each time, or do you change it up?
Yeah, it's almost the same. We had to change it a little bit, and now it's pretty set. Yeah.
So let's go back to the Patriot to the core. Obviously, that's awesome artwork as well. I love the logo.
Yeah, that's
let me bring up.
What's
this
it called? Fiverr.
Oh, you got Fiverr?
Actually,
yeah.
I paid someone else who helped me with the book to do a logo. It was a temporary one, and then I had in my head what I wanted. And I finally found a picture online of kind of what I wanted, and went to Fiverr and had them fix it to
And so you started that in was it 2016?
I think it was 2016. Yeah.
Okay. And what was so you did the book, that's 2013, 3 more years go by. Mm-hmm. You still just kind of having the itch I need to do more.
Yeah, I always had that itch. I always enjoyed when people asked me to speak somewhere. And but this really came about because a friend of mine said, Thad, you know what I was thinking? And I didn't really listen to podcasts before then. Mm-hmm. I was trying to figure out what they were. And he said, so many people that are in the military world that have done all these selfless acts for so long. I think you should start a podcast and start talking to these people. And I thought about it a little bit, kind of stored it. And then, finally I was like, I want to do it. I talked to another friend and I started making a list of people that I would ask and people that would come on it, especially with me not having any episodes. Here you're starting up. And
yeah.
So yeah, that's how it was born.
And walk me through some of your first guests and, kind of what your thought process was. Was it just kind of lining up those people you knew or were they friends of the family?
Yeah. The first guest, Johnny Yellock, he was one of Mark's great friends and teammates. So he was another combat controller. He got hit by an IED, got some jacked up legs, lots of limb salvaging surgeries. Second one was Michael Andrew, the friend who got the website set up for us because he does a lot of humanitarian aid work around the world. And because I knew the podcast is not all military. I have a lot of military on there, but it's people who serve. Sure. People who are patriots, who love their country and who serve their fellow man. And so, yeah, I love talking to these people. Yeah. And I don't do it as much now. I can't, but I do what I can.
It's funny you say that. When I've interviewed our CEO at Mantech a few times, and Mantech usually, it's hard to know what lists are really accurate, and you top a list, but top the list of company, of veterans that work at the company, that we hire veterans. It's up to like 50% of 11,500 employees, 50% were veterans. But he'll be quick to point out that does not include veterans from agencies with the intelligence community or government service or otherwise. Maybe they weren't in the military, but they did, retire as federal agents or,
They serve the country.
They serve the country. Yeah. And so the number's actually much higher than that.
Impressive.
So you just made me think of that. Like you always will point that out, but that doesn't count. And that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
So what have you learned in those episodes and the people, what is this experience as kind of hosting a podcast and the interviews, whether they were, focused on your brother or not, what have you learned?
These good stories need to get out there, and maybe it takes a good questioner. And I am not a good interviewer, by the way. I don't claim to be. I don't talk clearly, but I love what I do, so I don't care. It's not like I'm making money on it. Once again, but there are so much good that people's doing out there, and everybody has a story. And I think you know that, Troy, and the work that you do on your side jobs here.
Right.
Everybody's got a story, and sometimes it just takes somebody to help them get it out. And I've got a friend right now, a neighbor who is a Black Hawk pilot, and he's like, I don't have anything interesting. And he was in for 20 something years. And I said, wow. He does. I'm sure he does. I said, well, I'm going to write down some questions and topics, and I'm going to send them to you and see what you think and see if that stirs up some. And so I think that's what it takes, is asking the right questions. And then there's some amazing inspiration and lessons to be learned out there. You just got to get it out of people. And I've had a lot of great people on to share those stories.
I don't remember if it was Mike Rowe. It's not Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, but there was like some show on the Travel Channel or History Channel where they just kind of like throw a dart in a map and then they go there and start knocking doors, right? and just meeting people and getting their interesting stories. And I would love to do that. I love to meet people. And like you just said, everyone has something. Yeah. You just pry it back and you'll get there, right? You just get through some questions and you just kind of keep at it, keep whittling at it, and eventually you hit on it.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's fascinating. Even this, right? Or just listening to you and your brother. And at the time you may have thought, well, I don't know if anybody's going to like care about this episode, just me and my brother, but hey, there's like I was saying before, there's interest in that.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the higher downloaded episodes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So what are your goals for that, for the podcast? I know it's always tough when you have family, but what are now you've done it for a few years, more than a few years. Where do you want to take it? Do you have another book in mind?
No, I mean I maybe way back there, but I would love to do the podcast more. I need to find a way to do it. I need to find a way to make money with it, because the podcast is not really part of the foundation. The foundation promotes it, and it definitely promotes the foundation, but they are separate.
Sure.
I would love to shoot. If I could do it full time, I would do it, Troy.
I know.
But at the same time, my priority is my family. I got young kids, and so I have to step away from the podcast a little bit. By the time this comes out, I'll probably have episode 89 out. I just interviewed her Friday, and I thought it was powerful. It was an incredible Gold Star wife, 7 children.
Wow.
Husband was mayor of North Ogden, Utah.
Oh, really?
You may know who I'm talking about, but anyway, it was just powerful story. So I would love to do it more.
Yeah.
And I would love to even travel and interview people. And maybe that'll come. I've had people in the combat control community contact me and want me to interview some people, and maybe that'll come about at some point too.
Yeah, it looks like you've been featured on especially with National Geographic. Were you on? Is that what I saw on the website?
Well, it was on Mark. Yeah, I mean they interviewed me for it. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about Huntsville a little bit. Did you ever think? Now you're from Haleyville, but did you think you would live ultimately? Your paths in your family to Huntsville, or?
No. I mean, we didn't come to Huntsville a whole lot. Haleyville to Huntsville is not an easy drive. Going through the Bankhead Forest, it's just not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of pretty, I guess. But we didn't play a lot of schools over here in this area growing up in sports. My senior year, we kind of did because I had a coach from Huntsville, and he scheduled. We played Athens and we played Grissom, but I lived in Tuscaloosa for quite a while. I think 13 years, something like that. I can't remember. And then we moved to Trussville, which is a Birmingham suburb, and we loved it there. My wife loved it. We were very happy there. And then the things changed. We moved to Huntsville, and we're very happy here. We don't want to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, we were fine staying in Trussville.
Right.
Now we're in Huntsville. We would love to stay here. Hopefully that's in the plans for our life, but we're not looking to leave.
So number one goal, don't live anywhere outside of Alabama.
Hey, I lived in Mississippi for a year.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I am one of those that I couldn't wait to get out of Virginia and just have a different life experience. And coming to Huntsville has been great, just absolutely fantastic.
I mean, I think it shows that you are taking it all in. You're doing what I think everybody should do. Is just wherever you live, just learn to love it and be a fan of that area.
Yeah, it's funny how I don't know. You ever hear of someone like, "There's nothing to do," like name a place. There's nothing to do. Mm-hmm. That's just a terrible attitude. There's always stuff to do anywhere you live, and there's lots of places. I'm sure I would love to live, but you're right. I've really just taken this attitude of, if this is where I'm going to call home, then we're all in, right? We're going to make this our home, mm-hmm. And there's nothing like, it's so funny how tribal we are as a people, and it doesn't matter where you live in the country. You're going to be very, it kind of starts with your high school boundary. So here we are, we're in the James Clemens boundary, and you can already see all the things I've seen before in my life where there's that rivalry, right, with other high schools and like some of it's even in the HOA you're in. Like, we're just very competitive as a people, and like, it doesn't matter where you live, that happens, and it exists. And it's I guess it's kind of refreshing, that, hey, Alabama's no different that way. Yeah. But maybe there's a little bit between Huntsville and Madison. I would have liked to probably have lived, I think, where you live over the mountain, I would say, near Hampton Cove. But I was tired of commuting. I was driving really long distances to work, and I kind of wanted to be near the airport. I'm like,
I don't blame you.
If I ever decide that I'll be traveling more or having family come in, I'm tired of driving 60 miles to the airport. I'd rather just go 5 miles down County Line Road.
Yeah, you're right here in the thick of it. You got everything here.
So yeah, I'm sure we're the exception, but we're all in. Now, here's another reason I love Huntsville and I love Alabama is this is Grapico. This is not a beer. This is Diet Grapico. And I've never seen this in my life.
Have you had the real Grapico yet?
Not yet.
Well, you got to have the real stuff.
Not yet. I was trying to look for something to get me off Diet Coke. And I was looking at this. And I was like, let me try it out. It's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. My mother and father-in-law moved here last year from Utah.
Okay.
And they discovered, I introduced them, maybe I did, I don't know. They discovered Diet Grapico. And they keep it at their house all the time.
I'm scared to drink the real thing. I think I'll be
That's what I grew up on.
on Grapico.
I definitely didn't drink diet anything growing up. But you need to try Buffalo Rock's Southern Spice. Have you had that yet?
No.
Southern Spice.
Southern
It's a
Spice.
ginger ale. It's a different ginger ale than you've probably ever had. But I think that's probably a local drink too. I think it's got to be a Southern one.
Where are you with the boiled peanuts?
I don't
struggle with that.
I don't eat them. I mean, I'm not against them, but I don't go order them. My family, they love them. I'm not. I just like buying raw peanuts, putting them in the oven for 45 minutes on football Saturdays in the fall.
You like put anything on them? Like
Nope.
Just nothing?
No, you just buy raw peanuts.
Just raw.
And not everywhere has raw peanuts, but definitely Piggly Wiggly does. But I don't know if Publix always has them or not.
It is nice. My mother is so over the moon that there's a Publix near us. She lives over in Atlanta right now, but she had lived in Florida at one time, and Publix is more of a southern regional thing, I guess. But she loves their bakery and
Yeah.
and she's just like, oh, I'm so glad you have a Publix. What other places would you recommend to eat? I have been getting out and trying different things. I tried the taco. There's this place off 72. It was like an old drive-in theater, and the old ticket booth is actually like, it's the El Calzador, I think.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was so good.
They got several of those around.
Do they?
Their trucks, I think.
Well, you drive in and you order on one side of the ticket booth. You take the order, then you drive around and come around the other side, and you pick it up and you leave. But real authentic Mexican. I don't know. Any suggestions for me?
I'm not a good one yet because we're still trying to figure that out. A lot of the places that we loved in Birmingham, some of them are here, so we still hit those places up. As far as a new place, nothing is just jumping out. But we're not going out as much as we used to.
Yeah.
We used to go out a lot now with 3 kids.
Sure.
And then with prices skyrocketing. But yeah, food is and especially was very important to us to go find good food.
Are you going to go down to see a Stallions game?
I would love to. I would love to see a Stallions game. I haven't yet, but it's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Tickets are cheap. I mean, several weeks of games, I guess, still.
I tell you, I'm all in on the Pandas. And I've told this story before in other episodes. I had no idea what a trash panda was when I came to the Cyber Summit in September. Mm-hmm. And I'm all in.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of different, baseball hats, and I got some shirts. I'm wearing my Mud Run shirt today. This was the Madison Academy Mud Run that I ran in a couple Saturdays ago with my son, and it was awesome.
How'd you do? I mean, was it muddy? Did you really get muddy?
And it rained torrentially the night before, which added to it.
Yeah.
And it's right off of the Indian Trail, Indian Creek Trail.
Yeah,
And I run the Bradford Creek Trail a lot, and I could just look into the woods where it's still marshy. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, well, if those woods are going to be the same as the ones at the Indian Creek, and then it rained, it just rained buckets the night before, but it was proper muddy. We ran through probably 3/4 of a mile of mud and water. Plus there was all the obstacles, you're basically swimming through the creek. It was nice to get in the creek and kind of wash off.
Injuries from this?
No.
Any blisters?
No, I run a lot. I may not look like it, but I run quite a bit.
Okay.
So, and then my son ran cross country. So he actually then ran in the trash dash, the 5K over at Toyota Field. Mm-hmm. I was at the funeral, and he finished second in his age group.
What age group was that?
Like 15 to 19.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
He was pretty proud of himself, running in a wife beater and pink shorts.
You can wear anything goes in those races.
That's right. Hey, Thad, any final thoughts?
Thank you for having me. I mean, I would say you asked about Haleyville at the beginning. The people of Haleyville were so supportive of Mark and our family. I mean, you just wouldn't believe. I mean, we've got pictures and videos to try to capture some of it, but the things that people did to honor him and to thank him and our family, we could never repay. So great Americans, and we've seen that all over the country.
Yeah.
And I'm going back out to California in a few weeks for Memorial Day. There's a pocket there, and they've had us out there twice before. You would not believe how patriotic they are in this huge Memorial Day event. And there's just great people all over. There's great stories to be told, and this is the greatest country.
Yeah.
And we can't lose it. I mean, our freedoms and the right to bear arms, I'm a big fan of, and just free speech. I mean, we got to preserve that stuff.
Yeah. Haleyville is a town with the mayor,
Yes. Oh yeah.
and I would
Great
imagine
mayor.
they're pretty supportive.
Yeah, and the
Well-
same mayor. He's the same mayor as when Mark was killed.
Okay.
And he's a veteran, and yeah, very supportive. And they're very supportive of these events, the walk and the race. I mean, they assign police cars like the walk.
Yeah.
We're walking. Just think, 10, 11 hours a day. They're with us the whole time.
That's awesome. I thought I was a celebrity when I was in high school, and I was friends with the mayor's son. And I kept the mayor like on that pedestal of
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
you know, everyone's going to be so amazed that I'm friends with the mayor's son, you know, and hey, I'm friends with Brad. His dad's the mayor. You know, that was big time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the Haleyville mayor is not a full-time job. Now,
Right.
ours is retired, so he doesn't need to do it for the money. But
Right.
No, great place to grow up. I'm very fortunate for the parents and the brothers and sister that I have. And no, just great childhood, great
Yeah.
life, and I'm very happy and fortunate.
Well, for our listeners, which aren't as many as what Thad has on his, but please check out the Patriot to the Core podcast and his book, My Brother in Arms, story of Mark Andrew Forester. And really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
And hopefully it was fun for you to be on the other side of it.
Hey, I got something for you.
Yeah.
Maybe your listeners need to see this, the one that are watching. So here's a coin.
Here, let me there you go.
Where do you want me to put the coin? Right here?
Yeah. There's your camera right there. Right there. No, Thad, look at me.
Oh,
There's
look at you?
No, right here. Look at me. That's your
Oh,
camera
that
right
one.
there.
Yeah. Okay, so this is
Actually, I can probably zoom in on it. You want me to zoom in on it?
Sure, if you want to.
Okay, there you go. See that? Look at your camera. Okay.
All right, so this is a coin. A
Hold it up
challenge
higher,
coin.
and then look at the software. There you go.
Oh gosh, okay, you're high tech on me, Troy. But anyway, this is Mark here. It has his name and his killed in action date, and his call sign, and then on the back, you've got the silver star, and you've got two aircraft here. You've got an F-18 Hornet and an AH-64. It's an Apache, and those were two of the aircraft that were
Go a little
overhead
higher.
Mark.
There you go.
They were
Perfect.
providing close air support to Mark the day that he was killed. And we've met the pilot, one of the pilots in the F-18. It was documented on the show, on that Lifetime show. And we've met one of the pilots in the Apache as well, and talked to both of them. So anyway, that's kind of the symbolism of it. It says
Flip to the other side again.
it says the price of freedom.
There you go.
And how's that?
That's awesome.
So this is yours.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, scale back. I wasn't in the military, but I did serve some in the intel community, and I've got a few coins
I
from
figured.
very special places.
Yeah.
So I'll add this to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
You're
I
welcome.
have a T-shirt. I just have to get into the closet here to get it. I don't have it. And you did give me a T-shirt as well. If you don't mind me showing that.
Oh yeah. The Eagle, the Jag 2.8 Eagle.
Let me switch over. There it is. But I didn't want to wear it because I got the blue background, so I didn't want to make
Yeah.
myself like totally. And then it has jag28.com, right?
Yep. That forwards to markaforester.com.
Well, Thad, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking the time to come and drive to this side of town and talk with me.
My honor. Thank you, Troy. You're
All right,
doing
brother.
great.
Hey, have a good one.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.